My first guest tonight, let me tell you about her. She's a young woman, she's 23, she runs her own successful business. She's travelled the world, often on her own, and even studied abroad for a time in New York and in London. So far, so good, but not too surprising. But utterly remarkable when I reveal to you that she cannot read or write. Will you welcome, please, last year's Dublin Rose, Hannah MacDonald. Hello, Hannah. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
On the other side. Now, off you go. Now, Hannah, age 23, you've done a lot, run your own business, and you can't read or write. Why can you not read or write?
Dyspraxia.
Dyspraxia.
Or dyslexia.
Dyslexia and dyspraxia.
Dyslexia is why I can't read, and dyspraxia is why I can't write. Most people probably know a lot about dyslexia, but dyspraxia is probably the more unusual one, and that's why I can't write, because of spatial awareness. Being able to hold a pen is quite difficult, like to know what kind of pressure. I've often broken pencils, and I have scars on my finger for when I try to make the pen stay still.
Right. How did you manage in school?
With great difficulty.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you got through school without being able to read or write. We'll talk about second level. But in primary school, how did people react to you? What did they think was wrong with you? Did they think you were stupid? Did they think you were awkward?
Well, I started off, I suppose, there wasn't a big gap, but I was still different because of my dyspraxia, maybe. So I would be socially awkward, and I'd be falling over, split my head open a couple of times, and just found it really difficult to get on and do things normal. I just felt different.
You were telling me when you were in the swimming pool, for example, as a child,
yeah,
you'd keep on crashing into the wall.
Yeah, I used to swim like this, and it wasn't actually swimming because I didn't have the bilateral movement. So
it was just kind of managing.
Yeah, my swimming teacher said at the time, I don't know what she's doing, but that's certainly not swimming. But I was getting from one to the other.
And staying up.
Yeah, oh no, well, I'd be really upsetting everyone in the other lanes. I'd be like, so, and then I got concussion several times because I would think I'm miles away from the wall and
bang, into the wall.
Happened to me in Ireland, happened to me in France, happened to me at the age of 18 when I was 12, you know, a lot of times.
All right. Now, you said this social difficulty you had. You have to watch yourself a little bit because you're likely to do what in a social situation?
I suppose there's many things.
Yeah.
Socially, I think boundaries, not so much now, but definitely when I was younger, boundaries were not, you know, I didn't understand boundaries, and I would say something like, you have a snotty nose, or, you know, you smell, or, you know, so-and-so thinks you look like so-and-so. You know, I would say
whatever came into the head, you say.
Yeah, and my mum used to say, you know, we all think those things, but we don't say them. So that's the kind of, you just kind of have to watch yourself.
Yeah.
And as a child as well, I suppose, I have a very strong sense of justice, and if something wasn't fair, I'd speak up about it.
Yeah.
You know?
And those are the social skills that you learn as you grow older, not to say those things, to kind of hold your peace and maybe tell your mum and dad about it, but you know, not deal with it face to face.
No, because it doesn't do me any good, because the other person, at the end of the day, they don't really care, but I'm the one who gets affected by it.
What age were you when they diagnosed this, that you weren't simply an awkward, slow child, that there was a condition called dyspraxia, there was a condition called dyslexia,
well,
from which
they're
you
very separate, I suppose. When I was younger, I never crawled, and I used to say the alphabet backwards, you know?
Really?
And I can find, even I notice today, like, if I'm trying to take down a number, like on a phone or something, to check I've typed it in right, I'll go from the right to the left to kind of check the numbers like 8, 9, 2, 5, whatever. And it's easier for me to go the opposite way. But when I was younger, my parents, I think, thought there was something wrong with my sight because I kept falling over, because you wouldn't know what dyspraxia was. And to look at me, it's a hidden disability, so it must be something, you know, like your sight. And then I was diagnosed with this word called dyspraxia, and I don't even know, we didn't know what it was. And I never really told anyone I was dyspraxic until I was about 18. I just said I was dyslexic, and they just probably thought...
All right, your family are in the audience.
Yeah.
Teresa's here, actually, your mum. Teresa, these days, if you heard your child was suffering from dyspraxia, you go on the internet, type it in, and you'd have 1,020 articles about dyspraxia. You didn't have that facility when she was young.
18 years ago, when we were given the name or the word dyspraxia, it was explained that it was a gross motor disorder and she'd grow out of it. But we waited an awful long time and we worked through. We were advised to take up swimming, ballet, horse riding, and eventually, balance and everything else would come together. It was way down the line when we realised the actual impact it had on other areas of Hannah's life.
All right. Were you very worried about her in school, that she might be bullied, for example?
Oh, absolutely. As any parent, you send your little toddler off, you hope the best for them, but the world never actually treats them the way you'd like them to be treated. It's even harder for a child with dyspraxia because, as it kind of says, the social graces come a lot later. A lot of things that other children absorb and learn naturally have to be physically taught to a person with dyspraxia.
Well, Brian is sitting beside you, the husband, the father, and Ruth as well, Hannah's sister. I mean, Daddy's girls, I bet you were worried about her going off to school and wondering what might become of her.
Sure, yeah. Well, I suppose, you worry about your child. But she certainly seemed a girl well able to look after herself, with strong opinions and be able to work stuff out. But certainly, like the sense of social justice didn't seem like a problem in my eyes. It seemed like a very astute, very knowledgeable girl for her years, which I would see as a positive thing at the time. But obviously it caused its difficulties.
I'm sure it did. Anyway, she got through a lot of things. I mean, you became a champion lifesaver.
Yeah.
So someone who was floundering around in the water becomes a champion lifesaver.
Eventually. But back to school, when I was there, I found it very difficult. I've been to 4 different national schools, and I did get bullied a lot. They had an I Hate Hannah club at one time, which for me was quite, and I was really bad at everything. And I came home and said, I can't do it anymore, Mum. I can't be bad at another thing,
I don't want to take on something else to be bad at.
Yeah, because, it just felt, the message I was getting was, you can't read, you can't write, you can't do anything right, you're not worth anything from both peers and teachers and everybody. And I suppose even my parents sometimes, I think it's difficult. You talked about travelling, and I had been, I think it was difficult. I was quite hard on my siblings and parents at times because I would throw a lot of tantrums and, do things that are just...
But going back to school, you did the junior cert and the leaving cert.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got through them with the help of a scribe.
I had a reader and a scribe.
A reader and a scribe
Yeah.
to read the paper to you, and then you spoke it and they wrote it down. And you came out with 465 points.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Fantastic. So that's kind of the basic building block you need to get a life in this country and beyond.
Yeah, but I didn't even know I was going to have a reader and a scribe until literally about 2 weeks before. I was having panic attacks in the toilet, and I had all my art history pictures all over the wall, going into Trinity to do nighttime classes because I need to get my information a different way.
Now, there was a very telling message that you were given, your parents were given when you were a young girl, as to what would become of you if you didn't get the appropriate help. What was that? When
I was 10 and diagnosed with dyslexia, the psychologist said, because Hannah is such a high achiever and the education system is failing Hannah, if she doesn't get support now, by the time she's 13, she'll be on the street selling herself or selling drugs. And I got to see the flip side of that when I was in London, and I did a lot of work doing drama with young offenders. And you saw those very kids? Well, like they were the same age as me pretty much at the time. I was 18 and I was working with like 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And for me, I'm lucky because drama is, I'm an actor, and to do drama is just the most amazing thing in the world, to understand and explore the emotions. And you can't be wrong, Yeah. And we kind of used that as a tool. But I was very fortunate. My mum and dad were on the ball, and they fought for my, the support I needed. But you saw what happened to the kids who didn't get the help. The flip side, yeah, definitely. Right. And there are kids in our educational system now who may lose some of the help they have been getting because of the times we live in. And that will be pretty unfortunate. And if you don't put the money in now, you'll have to put it in later, That's for sure. Now, you have all sorts of coping mechanisms. Yeah. I mean, for example, today you were going to have a meal. Now, what happened? Yeah, well, I just decided today I have to eat early because, I might be nervous. And I thought, okay, I'll go and get a carvery in the local pub. And they weren't doing carvery, they were only doing soup and sandwiches. And this threw me off a little bit. Because you have to know, when you go to a restaurant, exactly what's on the menu. Well, I can't read a menu, and because I was having dinner on my own today, it was more difficult, because I was like, so what do you have? And he's like, there. And I'm like, do you have this? And he's like, no, it's not in the menu. So I was like, okay, so what do you have? I try and cope, or I was looking, is there pictures, or do you have this certain thing? So like, for example, if I'm going to a restaurant, I'll often go and we'll get the menu before we go in. And then we'll kind of learn, that's what I'm going to have, that's fine.
So you have
the
to
stress
prepare.
out of it.
And
the table is difficult in a restaurant too.
Why?
Because environment is really important. If you're in like a really busy environment and there's a lot of stuff going on, it's quite stressful. And it's decision making. Decision making is always hard. Like if you're going to make the wrong decision, and I think that's quite common with people with dyspraxia, whether they can make the right decision or wrong decision, because the repercussions if you make the wrong decision is harder to cope with.
Yeah. So anyway, you were thrown by that kind of thing. And you would, for example, in the Rose of Tralee, you thought about in advance, what kind of problems am I going to come up against?
Yeah, exactly, because I am one of these people who's always lost of love. Because you know the way you write lots of love.
Yeah.
I'm always lost of love. And I had one of those, I decided, thought I was doing great. I had like signing lost of love, best washes, and Hannah. And someone goes, what does that say? And I said, I think it says best watches. And I kind of went, okay, something needs to happen. So I just said to Tralee, look, I'd love a stamp saying best wishes, the Dublin Rose.
All right, and that's what you got, a stamp.
That's what I got, a rubber stamp.
Your boyfriend Colin is here tonight with you. He's at the physio with the Dublin hurling team. Great things expected of you this year, I have to say, Colin.
We're down in Limerick this weekend, so fingers crossed.
Do you find it difficult or amusing or entertaining to cope with your beloved here?
It's embarrassing when she puts you on a seat in the Late Late Show and gets questions asked. I don't think, difficult is the wrong word. It can be upsetting, I suppose, as an observer, when you see something that potentially can be upsetting for Hannah. And the restaurant thing is a prime example where Hannah will do all the preparatory work herself. Like, she's very proactive in terms of doing what she needs to do to get through life. And then you'll come in and your table won't be there, it's double booked. You try and explain things, you try and get a free table. And to see the kind of wind up happening and that, it is upsetting kind of as an observer. And it's such a avoidable situation at times. But then again, dyspraxia isn't a well-known condition. So. Yeah.
Well, that's part of the reason that you're here tonight, Hannah, isn't it? To let people know about the condition so people will be more understanding.
And aware.
And the fact that if it's dealt with, they can become a high achiever like you.
Well, But the point is, everything is achievable, and find that thing you're good at. My thing is the drama, and that was how I related to the world and understood things. It was all role play, it was all situations and coping. If I was doing this, how would I overcome this? And just, if it's sport, if it's whatever, find what you're good at and focus on that.
And focus on it. Hannah MacDonald, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Thank you so much. Now, if you're concerned about dyspraxia and you want to know more, the Dyspraxia Association of Ireland is holding its annual conference on Saturday, the 28th of March in the Clarion Hotel in Liffey Valley. You can